So, as I said, the very, very last learning unit. And yeah, interestingly enough, it is about development. It is about this belief that we could take people who aren't natural leaders and turn them into leaders. Any comment about that? And I know we've discussed this previously. Is it possible to make someone a leader, or are leaders born? Can we make someone a leader, or is the fact that leaders are simply born? I think sometimes it's difficult to stretch somebody who is not a natural leader. How's it, Walter? But it is possible because you can teach people the behaviors that they have to display. However, if you take a natural leader and you build on those skills, you should have this idea of a super leader. And I agree with that, Tanya. I think you can give them the skills, you can give them the behaviors to model, but there's those intangibles. There are those intangibles that you sometimes cannot teach, you cannot train. It's something that some people can't even accurately define. Those kind of characteristics that attract people to certain individuals. In the bit that I shared here, I specifically shared this particular article because we often consider Africa as a disaster space. That Africa is a place where you go if you want to observe a mess. And unfortunately, as Africans, we often live up to that low expectation of ourselves. We corrupt, the country is a mess. And then beyond that, the continent is a mess. So it's an interesting approach that the belief here is that the way to change Africa is to change people through knowledge and skills and abilities and attitudes towards life. The other one that I shared, and I don't know if anyone had a chance to read it, is this idea of the supposed leadership training industry. I think the truth is there are so many business schools out there. There are so many options in terms of attending courses on leadership, but we still end up with really poor leaders. We still end up in situations where leaders are clueless. Again, I don't want to pick on Trump, but Trump has lost the plot completely. I mean, the kind of insanity that he's displaying is beyond measure now. And then the last one, we spend so much money on leadership development, but we can't get the most of our employees. Why are employees so stressed, guys? Why is there almost this natural default setting to being stressed? Has the world gone that completely insane? If you have to rate your stress at work out of 10, what would that rating be? 7, Cleo? That's not too shabby, but it's pretty high. Anyone higher than Cleo? Our people pleaser? Shouldn't have told me that. Yeah, 9, Tanya. Yeah, well, it's the willing horse, isn't it? So what we do is you take the willing horse and you load that willing horse so that the stress levels are 9. Absolutely. Anyone below 7? I just want to find out if the drinkers are on call tonight. Normally people who drink often are the below 7s. Let me see the names. Gerardo, below 7. I might get fired after tonight. Okay, guys, let's look at the specifics for the slides. Right. 6 times 8. Oh gosh, is that the number of drinks in an evening? Gerardo, was that your stress levels? I really am looking at getting fired on my last lecture. Offend the students before they evaluate you so that you can get a bad rating. Okay, guys, so when we think of leadership development, I think we need to separate individual leader development, which focuses on providing skills for specific people in specific positions so that in future they can rise to whatever career path is intended for them. The other side is the idea of leadership development, where the organization looks at its leadership in totality and says, right, what do we do with our leadership grouping? Now, the problem in terms of modern organizations and distributed leadership is that you don't always know nowadays who is in leadership. But the idea is this long term process of creating this sweet spot in terms of current, future, and obviously, and the idea of people who will leave the organization and through some sort of succession planning be replaced by other leaders. The key thing, though, is this idea of creating inspiration, the idea of being able to live the vision that we provide. So when we think of leadership development, I think the first one is you may be a very successful leader in organization A, but you might, with the same style, with the same behaviors, with the same attitudes, with the same characteristics, be very bad in an organization B. I think the reality is that leadership development is something that happens within a social context. Organizations are unique, and therefore you need to create your own leadership group. You need to create your own leadership behaviors. You can't assume that because one person was fantastic in a particular organization, that they'll be fantastic in another organization. Give me examples of that where we've shifted leaders, and just by shifting the leader, that leader became less effective, became less good at what they were doing. Disney, absolutely. I mean, you have this sweet spot in leadership. When we change leaders, often leaders that might have been fantastic in a different industry bomb when they come to your industry. Other examples? Where people move between organizations and go from being highly effective to being not so great. What do we think of the past CEO of Eskom as a leader? What do we think of Andre de Ruyter? So you reckon he's shocking, Cleo? Andre de Ruyter? It's an interesting one because he was successful in business, but in terms of Eskom just didn't read the land very well, didn't understand the politics, didn't understand the realities of being in that kind of SOE environment. And I think he tried to transfer his skills from industry into Eskom, and it really didn't work. I think you're a very very different political animal when you work for an SOE, and I think the rules of the game change significantly. Other examples of where social context damaged the potential of a leader in a new organization, where social context was the problem. That's exactly it, Tanya. That's exactly it. I think the rules of the game are so significantly different because, in terms of industry, you're looking at bottom line. But in government, it's break even. But it's break even with a lot of politicking and understanding and maneuvering, the kinds of things that you don't expect in private business. So often when we take people from private into government, it is not the ideal that we see. We've also seen people who are successful in other industries attempt to fix the South African Airways. I mean, it's never worked. Look at the post office. We brought people in that were very effective in other industries, but bombed in the post office. So when we look at leader development, here we look at the individual. So it really is about identifying those training needs, those knowledge needs, those skill needs, those attitude, personality needs. But the key is that this is on the individual. And it's the building blocks that start with the individual. So the more leaders you train, the more building blocks you have in place in terms of the overall leadership development. And it's interesting, your leadership development is about the success of the organization, where in terms of leader development, it starts with individual success. It starts with getting this person to look like, sound like, talk like the kind of individual that would fit our social context. So, in terms of developing organizational leadership, I think there are a couple of things that we need to remember. There will always be this need for cognitive skills. Give me examples of cognitive skills that senior managers use. And let me tell you, the higher you are in the organization, the greater the need for high level cognitive skills. What kind of cognitive skills would somebody in a leadership versus a worker position require? It's the analysis, it's the anticipation, it is the reading the environment, it is extracting bits from the environment, it is seeing connects in the environment that aren't apparent to other people. So you have to give people skills in terms of analytical thinking, in terms of higher order thinking, and also the ability to understand the organization in its entirety and how the different elements connect together, as well as how it connects to the external. The second part is also generally when you move through an organization, you need interpersonal skills to survive. One of my favorite comments was from in the back in the days when he was chairman of Anglo American Gold, Clem Sunter, when someone asked him what his job is. And he said his job is to delegate and his job is to manage by wandering around. And manage by wandering around is where personal skills is where you have those extraordinarization of moments with individuals. It's that kind of thing. And I think the danger with leaders, in particular leaders that take their position as placing them above everyone else, is the issue of being arrogant, is the issue of looking and talking down to people. And then leadership development, guys. So when we look at leadership development, it has to do with individuals and it has to do with the overall requirements from the organization. To do that, you need some sort of organizational needs analysis. Now, the rule in terms of that needs analysis is that generally you would look at the following elements. You would look at your, sorry, let me just find my paint so that I can create magic again. So when we look at that needs analysis, we know that in terms of leadership, there are a couple of elements that we need to consider. You'll always have some sort of requirement for knowledge. Now, knowledge is theory, it's understanding. You will definitely need to learn about what deficiencies there are from a skills perspective. Now, for me, skills are knowledge in action. You also need to know what can we do in terms of building the right orientation or attitudes from people. The things that are impossible to change or very difficult to change sometimes are those natural abilities that people have, their innate abilities, and then also can't always change someone's personality. But when we think of what makes the ideal person, it has to be in an organization, in a leader, etc. It is that magic combination of knowledge and skill and attitude and ability and personality that creates this kind of sense that this is someone worth following. Any comments about that as the kind of things we look for in individuals? The right knowledge, the right skills, the right attitudes. But we also expect those innate abilities, those things that you are just naturally good at. And then you need to get the right personalities in place. So when we do a needs analysis, you can argue that these are the elements that we look at: knowledge, skill, ability, and then knowledge, skill, attitude, but also the idea of abilities and personality. Once you've done that, you will get a sense of this is what the organization requires. This is what we have in our leadership group, and that gap is where we'll focus our leadership and leader development. So we have a clear sense that for our organization to keep on route on the track that it's at the moment, this is the combination of knowledge, skills, abilities, competencies, etc. And the difference is what we have now. And that there is where the interventions come into play. Guys, and then just individual development planning. Can I see in the group tonight who has got career plan? Who of you have career plans in place? Clear career plans, some sort of career path, some sort of future career development path, career plan. Clear, very cool, very nice. Who else has a career plan in place from the organization's perspective, not from your own perspective, but those two need to meet and match for it to work well? You want to tell me out of 16 people, there is only one person that has a career plan in place from an organization's perspective? Can I just say what has happened in class is the reality in South Africa. People don't think enough about their career, their future, their path, the way they plan to move through the organization or move out and move back into the organization. What is the difference between being in a job and being in a career? What is the difference between being in a job and being in a career? Let me ask it differently.
So
That's
I
it.
think
It's your life. Yeah, go for it, Rebecca.
being in the job is like just getting paid, going to work for the sake of getting paid at the end of the month, and then getting a career. It's all about developing yourself and enhancing your skills. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. If you're in a job, you're always looking for another job. If
Yeah.
you're in a career, there's a clear connection with a particular vocation, with a particular field, with a particular skill set.
Yeah.
Do you think, considering that we're doing an honors qualification, guys, is anyone here in a job at this stage? And be honest, is anyone here see themselves being in a job? So everyone here considers themselves to be in a career. Tanya, is that job or career? Very nice, Sina. That's very nice. Tanya, that's awful, man. You know, being in a job is not satisfying. Being in a job is not. Yo, Walter, I know, but what you've shared with us, it's definitely a job. I mean, we know that it's a job considering the kind of things that you've discussed here. Sina, so you've made a career change. For me, I always hope people are in a job, are in a career, because when you're in a career, I think your levels of satisfaction and motivation and enjoyment and the kind of pleasure that you draw from your job are significantly higher, from a career, are significantly higher than you draw from a job. So once we've got what we need in the future, it's this clear plan of what this person needs to expose to, what this person has to go through in terms of interventions to get to contribute to this leadership group. Then we need to look at how do we assess it? Are we on track? Are we addressing the needs in terms of our future leadership requirements? Are we falling short? Where do we have to bring new people in, etc.? That's fantastic, Tanya, and that's why a lot of people are here. I think a lot of people are studying to make a break in their lives, and it's interesting that yours went from career to job, which is also just an indication that you're feeling unsettled. So, in terms of leadership development further, I think it's about understanding the organization, but it's also understanding broader society. I think organizations are now such an integral part in society, have so much power in society that you will not only just have exposure to things that make the organization fantastic, but it really gives you training on how to fit the organization within the broader context of the job, the kind of triple bottom line stuff that you guys would have done in third year, the people, planet, and obvious, yeah, the people, planet, and profit stuff, with a fourth one added to that now, the purpose. So we talk about issues around making sure you look after the interests of your shareholders, making sure that you look after the natural environment, making sure you look after society and communities, but also that you look after governance issues from an ethics perspective. So, in terms of leadership development, it really is to get people to understand their own view of leadership, how they would live out their lives as a leaders, how they would fit into the social context, how they would contribute to the triple bottom line. So here are a bunch of options in terms of training. I'm going to go through them fairly quickly. I want to spend a bit of time on something a little bit later. Action learning. Action learning is really the idea of learning while doing. So what happens is that if you want to take a bunch of junior managers and expose them to more senior decision making, you expose them by giving them problems to solve, by working together, by collaborating, etc. The ideas of action learning start with a problem, explain to people something that has to be solved, and then get the right people, and you mix in terms of abilities and functional areas, and making sure that people are quite diverse in their thinking. And then you start looking at the problem and you start working towards solutions. But the key thing in arriving at these solutions, it is about learning how to take decisions, learning how to get the best out of people, learning how to connect with other people. Coaching and mentoring. The difference between a coach is a coach will give you guidance, a mentor will build your career. So a coach is there to show you the ropes. It's there to show you how to act, to operate as a leader, where a mentor has the additional duty of plugging you in to the existing system, of making you get the right connects, of getting you to network. So coach is more job related, where for me, a mentor is definitely career related, connecting you, teaching you to network, pointing you to people who you can network with. And there are the differences, guys. I mean, the biggest one is the idea that the mentor plays a far more active role in your future successes. Right. So generally mentor more experienced, but I think it's about getting people to understand the role, but also letting this person plug into their existing network. So part of that is making this person, and I apologize for what I'm going to say next, but feel part of what we would have traditionally considered the boys club, that kind of important networking things that get you ahead. In terms of mentoring, always going to be about your career, and then the reality of the modern world. You will be knocked down, you will be stamped on, but it's that psychosocial support in terms of building resilience, getting people to understand the realities of the world, and being there in terms of being a sounding board, being a listening ear. Very, very important. And then, yeah, experiential learning, Kolb's process. It starts with some sort of concrete experience. So what happens is that you get a set of facts that has happened. You're then given a moment to have a bit of reflective thinking, where you think about the realities, the significance, the meanings of those particular events. And then you create this ideal solution in your head, but you don't commit it to anything concrete yet, but you sit and you conceptualize, you create an abstract idea of what the solution is, creating your own theory, creating your own suggestions about a process. And then lastly, it is the question of, if I do that, what will happen? If I do that, what will happen? And then reflection. Can I just see? I look after the supervisors for Maritzburg Varsity College for psych and for management, the honors supervisors. Every year in December, we take time out to reflect about what worked, what didn't work, what do we keep, what do we throw away, where did we do well, where can we improve. Does anyone do that in their organization? Is take a step back and a breather to reflect on those kinds of issues? And Jess, how do you guys do that? You can talk. Don't worry about typing. How do you guys do that? Is it away from work in a sort of bush setting, or do you do it at work? Yeah, no, Walter, the thing that rhymes with your answer, nope, there's no hope for your organization. Okay, Anil. Okay, very cool. Which VC do you work for?
I'm at the NMB campus, Nelson Mandela Bay.
What do you do there, Neil?
I'm an academic support coordinator for the School of
For
Humanities.
Oh, very cool. Okay, so School of Humanities. So you would work with Rita from Maritzburg.
No, I'm at Nelson Mandela Bay, not
No, 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 I'm
in
talking, but
Maritzburg.
you guys
Mm.
would be in meetings together. Now, I always
Yes,
think you
yes,
guys,
all the
um,
ISCs, yes, normally in all meetings
yes,
together.
that's what, yeah, because I'm the P gal for Peter Maritzburg for
Okay.
humanities and management. Yes, as a contractor though, I'm not a full-time person. Zama, what did you say? You have to do that. What are the benefits, Jess, of taking that step back and doing that kind of reflection? What are the benefits of reflecting like that, guys? For me, it's about learning. What that reflection does, it's about learning. And it's exactly that, Marcus. It is about learning from past mistakes. It really, we require that. And it doesn't cost a lot of money, but it is a moment to breathe. Because if just with the PGAL stuff, looking after getting the honor students to submit their research, there's a lot that happens in a year. It's a full research project, and there is so much that happens that mistakes will be made. Sometimes supervisors don't connect with the people they're supporting. So for me, it is absolutely essential that we do that. And for me, it should be built into a company's calendar. It should be part of your calendar, because otherwise you just add mistakes on mistakes on mistakes, because generally organizations if you ask them, they will tell you at the management level that we are fantastic, when in reality, they're not fantastic. So in terms of reflection, I think it is the idea of serious thought consideration. It is to examine experiences. It's to understand what we've been through. It is to learn from that. Guys, the idea of organizational learning is such an essential element for organizations to survive in this insane environment. Another concept that really and truly organizations need to spend more time on is the idea of mindfulness. Now, I'm not going to look at mindfulness right now. Has anyone been through mindfulness training? And if you have, what do you want to tell us? Can you tell us what mindfulness is? Has anyone been on mindfulness training? Yeah. Mindfulness is that ability to mindfulness is that ability to, when everyone else is losing their head, is to keep calm. If we think of the average year in an organization, there are so many things, there are so many events, there are so many crises, there are so many new products, there are so many issues that happen on a daily basis. Okay, that's interesting, Sina. That is interesting. I think for me, my reflection is bigger than auditing. I think auditing is good at catching what you've done. I think reflection will pick up elements that auditors won't ever find. Auditors won't ever find those human elements, won't ever find those elements that don't define in terms of numbers and cents and those kinds of things. So if we think of the average day, the average year, there is so much that happens in an organization. And what mindfulness does, it teaches you to, in a place where everyone loses their mind, to focus on what is important. So what we see is we learn about our assumptions in terms of mindfulness, and we challenge those assumptions. Now, when you're mindful, there are a couple of rules that apply. First of all, it's to constantly challenge your own thinking. And why mindfulness connects to a reflective type exercise is because when you reflect, you're challenging what you had thought was were the rules of the game. And then to be mindful, you have to be open to new information. It is about listening, it's about discerning, it's about accepting new information. And then it's to broaden your mind. It is to consider broader perspectives. And then the key thing for me is this. It is about this awareness. It's about this involvement in a process. It's about not being a victim of circumstances and waves that throw you around as if you are helpless. So generally what happens is that your thought processes are geared towards solutions. And then obviously it's about intuition and it's about learning from experiences. Let me tell you what is not a mindful person. And I want some honesty here. Who sometimes will catch themselves doing something pleasant and be fighting a battle elsewhere? Who catches themselves? Oh, that's very good, Tanya. Does anyone ever catch themselves doing something pleasant, but they're busy fighting battles elsewhere? Do you want to share a bit more with us, Cleo? Ongs as well? Yeah, Walter? You're sitting with your kid, you're sitting by a lake, you're sitting by a river, and you're fighting a battle in your head. So much so that you don't even realize the pleasurable moments that you're missing. Mindfulness is the opposite of that. Now, that process of fighting battles when they're long gone, it's called I hope I'm going to spell this right. Rumination. I think it's like that. Um, oh my gosh. So, in terms of ruminating, it's this thing going over your mind repeatedly, over and over and over. And it when you ruminate, you miss the moments of pleasure that you're in. Now, when we think of mindfulness, often when you've had a bad day at work, most people, when they've had conflict with someone at work, will still be fighting those battles at dinner that night. Does anyone do that? That they replay those battles in a way of, oh, I should have this and then I should have done that, instead of just going, you know what, I'm at home now. It is pleasurable. I'm sitting by the pool. I think some people will sit with their feet in the water and still be fighting a battle from a meeting in the morning. So the idea of mindfulness is the ability to isolate yourself in terms of those thoughts. It is the ability to focus on something so specifically that whether it's putting your feet in water in a pool and focusing and enjoying the sensation of the water. I think everyone who ruminates, and trust me, most people do, they miss out on fantastic, pleasurable opportunities. They're busy fighting battles. Yeah, well, it will be a battle, and honest, yes, but also sometimes, sometimes a fight is over. I always worry about people who keep fighting the same fight over and over so that they can find ways of beating the person. I think people don't live in the moment. I think people live fighting battles that were long gone, and that is really problematic. So, in terms of what mindfulness is, it's this rich awareness of every discriminatory detail. It is when you put your feet in the water, in the swimming pool, that you feel the water on each toe, that you feel the waves, that you feel the ripples, that you feel the sensation. If you're not in that place, if your mind are finding battles elsewhere, or fighting battles elsewhere, you won't even know that your feet are in water. And that's where mindfulness comes in. The danger with not being mindful is that those battles and those fights that you fight in your head essentially cause stress. So you never de-stress, you never step away from the stressors. So mindfulness is this here, guys. It's about being present in the moment. It is about having your head, your mind, your psyche, having everything in the same place as you are right there and then. And we talk about people who go on holiday. I think there are lots of people who sit at the beach and will fight battles from the year before, not being able to isolate themselves, not being able to enjoy the pleasant sensations that comes with being on holiday. And then I think also what will happen is this ability to draw from the mundane, pleasure from the mundane. One of the exercises they do in mindfulness training is they give each of the participants in the course a raisin. And you're not allowed to eat the raisin, but you put it on your tongue in your mouth, and they make you focus on that raisin. And it's amazing how, by being focused on this little, tiny little raisin in your mouth, how the rest of the world disappears. Because you're being in the moment, you are spending your time on something that potentially is important for you. Now, when I did my PhD, initially I thought I would do my PhD in organizational psychosis, and there's no concept such as that. I would have created that concept. And I was researching organizations that things had gone wrong so badly that you end up with some sort of organizational psychosis where everything is just messy, where nothing gets right no matter what you do. And when I started my PhD and I did my PhD in organizational panic, etc., or crisis management, but the opposite of organizational psychosis would be a mindful organization, would be an organization where we look at things that happen within the context of where they happen, where we believe in resilience, where we remember past successes, where we manage emotionality, where we manage panic. And I think it's accepting that the world is uncertain and not becoming a victim of the uncertainty. It's about understanding in the moment what the right thing to do is. And we talk about people who are really good in crises. It's that idea that when everyone else is losing their head, the person that's good in crisis is in control. And a person generally who is mindful is in the moment, in control. Guys, you can read on the Mindful Organization. Sorry that I didn't summarize it, but I wanted to provide this for people to read. And the important thing is that for me, it's the opposite of organizational psychosis. It is an organization that understands what it's good at, where it has to improve, that understands resilience, and also understands that when things go wrong, they're able to cope, they're able to deal with crises. In terms of the idea of mindfulness, and we talk about pronesis, it really is about learning from experiences and making the most of those experiences. And in an organization, it becomes this learning mindset. And that's why reflection is so important. We spend time reflecting every year because we want to be mindful about what we've done well, what we didn't do well, and what we need to improve. Guys, I'm not going to go through it. You can have a glance at this. It really is just that moment of being in the present when everyone else loses their mind. I've gone through it a bit quickly, and I'd rather chat about it than go through that. You can have a read of that. Any comments about mindfulness and the value of mindfulness? And certainly, guys, if you ever, the author is Kabat-Zinn. He started the idea of mindfulness, and it's well worth finding his stuff to read. John Kabat-Zinn, wonderful reading. There's some YouTube videos on it as well, and it's not for me. Gerardo, it's a wonderful opportunity, and it's often run by psychologists or therapists, but it really is a wonderful opportunity. And what I'm talking about now is that it's not about passing an exam. I think out of everything in this module, if you take one thing, it's this, because I think being mindful, being present, being able to manage your stress, being able to detach yourself from fighting battles in your head is a valuable thing in terms of your future career. Yeah, so it's John Kabat-Zinn, guys. You can take that down, just see some of his YouTube videos, very interesting. But this is so much not about learning right now and passing an exam. It really is about your own future in terms of leadership, etc. Right. Guys, any questions, any comments